Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is strive. Let's take a moment to look at some of the definitions or the ways that we use this verb. The first way you may hear strive used is to mean to make great efforts in order to achieve or obtain something. So with this definition, I encourage you to think about this is not something that we can quickly do, sort of check off. This is something that might take a long time, a goal you're working towards. It's going to take a lot of effort or hard work. A second way the verb strive gets used, and it's very much connected here, is to struggle, try hard, or fight even. So again, I think many of the examples you're going to see today are really going to be focused on that struggle, the idea someone is working really hard towards something. Now, you should know that strive is an irregular verb. To make the progressive form of this verb, you're going to drop the E and then add ing to form striving. The past tense form of this verb has a spelling change. We're going to change the I to an O, and that forms strove. The participle form of our verb is going to require us to add the letter N to the end of the base word, and that makes striven. Okay. Now, I always enjoy reading about and thinking about these different verbs. I did find a couple examples where people have tried to make strive a regular verb, but that is not considered the most ideal form of English grammar. So I'm going to encourage you to remember these irregular forms. It might help you that the pattern here follows that of the verb drive. So drive is a verb that ends with IVE, and we're going to follow the same, change the I to an O in the past tense, and then add an N to the end of the verb to make the participle. So maybe that's a good way to remember the irregular forms. But now let's move on and talk about some phrasal verbs you might see with strive. And the first you might encounter is to strive to strive after. And generally what this means is someone is putting forth a lot of effort in order to reach or accomplish something. An example of this might be, many of my students are striving after a better life for their families. So I have the great pleasure of working with a lot of immigrants and refugees, and many of them are working multiple jobs. They're taking English class. They're putting forth a lot of effort in order to have, in some cases, a safer and more secure future for their loved ones. Another phrasal verb you might encounter is to strive against. This time, we're putting forth a lot of effort in order to prevent something from happening, or maybe to oppose something. An example of this might be, multiple organizations have been striving against food insecurity in the community. So this sentence is suggesting that these are probably several nonprofits, community groups working to stop people from not having enough food or not being able to access affordable and healthy food. The last phrasal verb we'll discuss today is strive for. Again, it goes back to that definition of putting forth a lot of effort, great effort, to reach or accomplish something. An example of this, has he been striving for a promotion? Right? Working really hard, putting a lot of effort in order to reach that particular accomplishment or that goal. Now, let's continue using our verb of the day, and we'll practice a couple verb tenses. Today, let's practice the present progressive, which is also known as the present continuous, and the simple future. We'll start with the present progressive. We use this verb tense to talk about actions that are happening now. We also use it to describe actions that are in progress during a time period that has not been completed. The reason I enjoy calling this verb tense present progressive is that the two P's can help me remember I need two parts to make my verb. So I'm going to use a present form of be, and then I'm going to use the ing form of my verb. So when I'm making sentences in the present progressive, I need to pay attention to my subject. If my subject is I'm going to use am and then that ing form. If my subject is you, we, or they, I'll use are, A-R-E, and then the ing form of the verb. And finally, if my subject is he, she, or it, I'll use is, and then the ing form of the verb. Let's take a look at an affirmative example. Researchers are striving to learn more about peripheral artery disease. Okay? So this is a form of heart disease, and we're describing that this activity is ongoing. It's in progress. Now let's move on and talk about negative sentences in the present progressive. To do this, again, I start with a subject. I use the form of be that matches, then not, then the ing form of the verb. Here's another example. Our leaders aren't striving for the common good. Okay. Now, this is something many people say about different politicians, perhaps politicians in their community, maybe at the state level or even national. And here it can feel like sometimes people are not working towards kind of that greater good. Maybe they're worried really only about himself, herself, or a smaller portion or part of the population. Finally, let's look at making a yes or no question in the present progressive. To do this, I start with a present form of be, am, is, are, whichever form matches my subject, that subject comes next, and then you're going to see the ing form the verb. Here's another example. Is the company striving to reduce its carbon footprint? Okay. So we want to know, are they doing things to do less harm to the environment? Now let's move on and talk about the simple future. There are three ways to talk about things in the future and in English. Today, though, we're going to focus on using be going to. This form is really common with people talking about their plans. Might see it with predictions or promises, but generally, plans is the most common way to use our be going to form of the simple future. To make sentences in the simple future with be going to, our pattern is going to be to start with our subject, then we're going to use a present form of be, so just like we talked about, am, is, are, right? Then we're going to use going to and the base verb. So here, we're not adding a suffix or an ending to this verb. Okay. Let's take a look at the first example. She's going to strive to be the very best. Okay. So suggesting she's going to work very hard, right? Put forth a lot of effort. Now let's talk about making negative sentences in the simple future. To do this, I start with a subject. I use my form of be that matches, then not, then going to, and the base verb. Here's another example. We aren't going to strive to beat all of our opponents in every game. Our goal is to improve every week. I saw a quotation from a coach that was very similar to this, right? So what the coach is saying, I think with this statement is, it's not so much about just winning, it's about making our team and our players better game after game after game. Finally, let's look at making a yes or no question in the simple future. To do this, I start with a present form of be. I'm going to have my subject, right? Then I'll use going to and the base verb. Here's my last example. Are the new members of the utility board going to strive hard to reduce the price of electricity? So something very similar to this leading up to elections here in the United States, wanting to know if elected, right, what is this elected official's plans for the future. So here, is this a goal? Is this something they're going to put a lot of effort into? Now, let's spend a moment looking at some words that are related to our verb strive. And the first word we're going to discuss is the noun form striver. You might see that suffix er. Generally, that's telling us it's a person or a thing who, and we can look back to our root word. So here it's a person who strives, someone who works very hard. An example of this might be the parenting researcher encourages parents to raise healthy strivers, not perfectionists. So this sentence is indicating that someone who studies parents and I guess is the futures of children, looking at different parenting methods, strategies, and things, they're encouraging, right? You want to raise your child so that they're working hard, but not consumed by everything being perfect, right? Sometimes that makes people less willing to take chances and try something new because they don't want to fail. One last related word for today, it's the word strife. This word is another way to describe conflict. Many times when this word is getting used, I think of really angry, bitter types of conflict. Not just like I disagree with you, but I'm pretty upset about it. So an example of how this noun might be used in a sentence is, the tentative agreement between the union and company will ease labor strife. So in the news recently, there have been many labor strikes, right? Where workers have said we're not working until we have better pay or better working conditions, things of that nature, right? This sentence is suggesting there's been an agreement, and so the conflict between kind of company owners, management, and the workers here is maybe going to be minimized or lessened. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.